What's going on, everybody? This is Tyler Anderson from Tyler's Real Fishing on behalf of Lucky Tackle Box, and today I'm going to be explaining to you guys how to catch fish on the Mr. Twister curly tail worm that you guys received in your month's Lucky Tackle Box in some pretty adverse conditions. Let's get going. So the first thing that I'm going to explain about today is that we are fishing in a hurricane. So no, we are not in the eye of the hurricane, we're not in the worst part, but Hurricane Harvey has made its way onto the Texas shoreline, and we are here today on a rainy, not really cold, but a rainy Saturday afternoon, trying to catch fish on this worm for you guys. Now, the good thing about a curly tail worm, especially this one right here, is that it is super versatile. So you can fish it on anything from 60 feet to 2 feet, and anything from a standard Texas rig shaky head to anywhere from a chatterbait, spinnerbait trailer. So today I'm going to explain to you guys rigging, retrieval, and location on how to fish this worm in 2 different ways. The first of those being used as a trailer on a chatterbait, and the second by itself on a shaky head. Let's get started with rigging. So the rigging of this worm really doesn't take a whole lot of skill, especially on the chatterbait, but it does take some patience and practice to make sure you get it on there completely straight. Now, as you can see, I've already been fishing this for quite a while, so we're going to take this one off and redo it with this one. What I'm going to do is place the worm right next to the shank of the hook where it's going to come out and poke out from, and I'm going to basically make a mark kind of right there on the worm so I know where to poke the hook out from. And then I'm going to line it up right on the edge. You can kind of see the seam there where the factory was made the plastic. And I'm going to thread this hook all the way down as straight as I can to the mark that I made, puncture it out like that, and I'm going to push it all the way down to the end of the chatterbait, just like that. And you have a great search bait trailer on a great search bait. Now you may be asking yourself, Tyler, why are you using a curly tail worm on a chatterbait? Aren't you supposed to use swim baits and craws? Yes, you can, but the good thing about the curly tail worm is that it's so versatile, and that because it has a good tail action, it can be used on many different circumstances, and one of those being a chatterbait, and I'll show you guys why later. And the other way of rigging it that I'm going to be explaining today is by using a shaky head. Now, as you guys, if you watched my channel before, you know that I absolutely love shaky heads. It's probably my favorite finesse pattern, and it is because it is such a small finesse application. Now today, hopefully these fish are going to be in an active feeding mood, and I won't have to pull this out, but just in case I do, this thing will probably get a lot more bites than this chatterbait will, and that is just because it is super small, super finesse. It looks like an easy meal for those bass to eat, and basically all I do to rig it is take it off, twist it on the twist lock, and then thread it on just like a Texas rig, and you have yourself a great worm application. I'm going to quickly explain the gear that I'm using to throw both of these styles of worms in today's video, just real quick to end out this section. For the shaky head, of course, you can throw it on a bait caster, but I really prefer to throw it on a spinning reel, spinning rod, because you have more control over how you're working the bait in the water. So sure, you can throw more accurately with a bait caster, but you are able to work this bait a lot more efficiently with the spinning rod. And so today I have the Lew's TP1 Speed Stick Drop Shot Special. Sure, they have a shaky head rod as well, but I love drop shot rod just because the tip is more supple and you can just give the bait a lot more action in the water. Then I have a Lew's spinning reel. I think it's a 3000 size. I would recommend a 2000, but I left all my 2000s back at home. And I have 12-pound braid to a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, just to give those fish the added, I guess not give those fish the added advantage of seeing your line. And with a chatterbait, you guys know that I love to throw chatterbaits on a crankbait rod. Now the reason for that is because crankbait rods can give you a super long cast, and they're very very especially when throwing a bladed bait. And so I'm throwing a Lew's Magnum Crankbait 2 rod, 7/6 medium heavy, with a Lew's Speed Spool BB1 Pro, just all around great crankbait reel, and 12-pound fluorocarbon. If I was fishing, a super heavy grass or a timber situation, I would bump up to 14 or 17-pound fluoro, but for open water grass, I'm just going to throw 12-pound today. Now that we have the rigging figured out for both of these baits, let's move on to retrieval. So the retrieval of this Mr. Twister worm by itself is a whole lot different than the retrieval would be on the chatterbait. So let's hop out on the water and see what I was able to do to effectively catch fish using this worm. So when retrieving this bait, it is fairly simple. It's usually just a straight retrieve, straight back, just like this, like a crankbait or a spinnerbait. But just like I love to do with both crankbaits and spinnerbaits, add a few jerks every once in a while. Give it a pause, let the skirt kind of flare out, and that usually is what creates the reaction bite. Not just the flashy gold or silver blade on the front, but also the skirt that flares in and out. And the worm on the back really adds a different quality than a swim bait would or a craw would. It just gives the fish a look they haven't seen before, and I've caught many fish with a swimming worm on the back of a chatterbait. Now the way that I work this shaky head with the Mr. Twister worm is, of course, a lot slower than you would work a chatterbait. And what I basically do is just kind of like hop it up and over the pieces of grass that are sitting down there on the bottom. So the retriever with the shaky head is basically just kind of like a hop and shake. So occasionally I'll drag a shaky head, but because the pond here today is a mud bottom filled with grass, it doesn't do very much good to drag it because you just collect debris as you drag. So as you can kind of see, I'm bringing it up like this. I reel in my slack and I kind of shake it as I go up and over these pieces of grass on the bottom. And now that we have retrieval all figured out, let's move on to location to figure out where to best throw these two baits in this pond to catch the most amount of fish. And oftentimes when it's windy, you just have to cover a ton of water because, oh, yep, right there's a fish chilling super shallow. Wind can also push fish up shallow, like that fish was just right there. But as I was saying, even if it's a small pond, you've got to cover water when it's windy, because wind moves the forage around, moves the bait around, which in turn moves the bass around. So until you find a sizable concentration of bass, you got to move around a lot. Oh, I've got one. I think I got one. Do I? Yes, I do, folks. I don't think it's a bad one either. Oh no, it's actually not that big. But I was casting just right over that point. I don't know if y'all saw that or not, but a 5-pounder just tried to eat my fish. I kid you not. I can't wait to look at this GoPro footage right now. A 5-pounder just tried to eat this thing. Wow, guys, so as you saw, this Mr. Twister worm on this chatterbait got this small guy to bite, which in turn almost caught me. I can't even explain what's going on right now. That was insane, but let's get this fish back in the water and talk about what we were doing. So basically, I feel like I have to explain what just happened there. I made a long cast with the Mr. Twister worm on the chatterbait over this point where fish are always hanging out in ponds, and I reeled it in, and all of a sudden this 5-pounder came up and absolutely attacked it. So that kind of tells me these fish are really active today. I mean, if a 5-pounder is going to try to eat a 1-pounder, then I think these fish are in a feeding mood. So I had the Mr. Twister worm also rigged up on a shaky head, but I don't think I'm going to have to be using that today because these fish want to feed. They need their food today. So basically what I've done is I've circled the entire pond with the search bait and the worm on the back, and I've decided that I found a certain area that had the most amount of fish that I could find, and so I'm going to dissect that area with the worm. And you guys can basically do this with any sort of baits that you guys have. So most ponds that I get to, especially in the summer, fall, and spring when I know those fish are going to be feeding, I throw a search bait around to find the fish, and then I use the worm or a slower tactic to pick apart that area and catch the most fish possible. So now that I've used the chatterbait, let's move on to the worm. There we go. Got one. Got one. Oh, not a big one, but I'll take it. On the shaky head, look at that. I will take that fish, that is for sure. Bring him up here. Yes. All right, folks. So as you can see, that worm worked in both situations. As I figured out the fish were sitting on this bank over here, so I cast the worm by that tree, and I got him. Cool. Adios. Well, everybody, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something about fishing with the original curly tail worm. Now, today I was able to fish in a hurricane in the rain. It was pretty crazy, but we were able to dissect the pond using a search bait and then a finesse style application like a shaky head to catch 2 fish today. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to this Lucky Tackle Box YouTube channel, and my YouTube channel will be linked below as well, Tyler's Real Fishing, for you guys to go over there and enjoy those videos. Now, if you guys like this video, make sure you guys hit the thumbs up button, and we'll see you guys next time on Lucky Tackle Box.